Hello and welcome. This is Rough Cut again with Kaveree Bamzai. We have a very exciting week today, and we begin with The Devil Wears Prada, the sequel. While it's not as exciting as the first one, it's also not about fashion, which is surprising because it is set in the fashion industry and it is about the same magazine runway as the first one. But it's actually quite a depressing film. It's depressing because it tells you the state of the media. There's a wonderful sequence there where you have the Last Supper at the Santa Maria del Grazie, to tell you the exact name of the abbey where it's placed. And Meryl Streep, who plays Miranda Priestley, of course, is telling Andrea Sachs, who's played by Anne Hathaway, what it signifies. And it is about betrayal. And the movie really is about the betrayal of the media and by the media, of the media by its readers and the people who run it, and by the media, again, of the people who consume it. Let me explain. It tells you about really where we have come in terms of magazine journalism, where you no longer have visionaries as editors. There was a time when there were. And they've been replaced by vendors who essentially are bartering pages for advertising, which is what's happening not just in fashion magazines as we know, but in magazines all over. And it's all about chasing the celebrity culture. It's all about what has happened to real journalism. You have Andrea Sachs, who plays a real journalist who spent the past 20 years chasing stories across the world, and who really, in fact, the film begins with her winning an award and also being fired at the same time, which again is happening to a whole lot of people in the media. And it really tells you the state of media worldwide, not just in America. We see it in India, billionaires buying and selling media houses as if they were loose change for them, which it is. And at the end, without giving too much away, it really is a question of who is the worst billionaire? Is it the billionaire who wants the magazine for his girlfriend as a trophy? Or is it the billionaire's ex-wife who wants the magazine, well, also as sort of to upstage her ex-husband? So that culture of tech bros, which we've seen in various series and movies of late, really comes to fruition in The Devil Wears Prada. And the fashion really is just a sort of stage where you see a lot of ugliness behind those beautiful clothes and those beautiful models. And that really is what is so shocking about this sequel, where the beauty is really skin deep. And what's surprising is the reality check that it gives us. And as a journalist, it's actually quite a depressing watch because it's telling us what has happened to the media. And what else? Otherwise, there are lots of joys in this movie as well. It's not that it's totally depressing. People who are not necessarily journalists will find it very attractive. There are cameos by the dozen by people like Tina Brown and Kara Swisher, and I mean just about the who's who of fashion. There's a wonderful cameo by Lady Gaga without giving too much away, and there's also the whole idea of chasing the celebrity for that exclusive. The more elusive the celebrity, the more exclusive the story. So it really tells you so much about the celebrity-driven world we're living in today. And it's not even a satire, it's a reality, which really is, as I said, the most depressing part of the film. But who can say no to a movie with Emily Blunt, Anne Hathaway, and of course Meryl Streep, and the wonderful Stanley Tucci, whom we've seen of late in his avatar as a foodie in Italy. But it's so many joys to this movie. But remember, it's not a ha-ha comedy. It's almost like a somber reality check, but draped in the most beautiful, beautiful clothes and on the most beautiful bodies. There's Simone Ashley as well from Bridgerton, so yay for India. And there's a McKinsey type again who's played by an Indian, so it tells you a lot about the consultant culture of McKinsey, which I think was predominantly the result of so many Indians getting together and trying to tell people what's wrong with their company without really being invested in it. And I think the other very interesting thing is the whole idea of succession, which is taken from Succession, the series, where the older media barons really loved the media and really loved the profession, and the generation next isn't as invested in the media, isn't as invested in the magazine culture or in the culture of good writing, and really just sees it as a whole waste of money and something that could definitely be used elsewhere. So a lot of truths in The Devil Wears Prada, which really for me is the standout film of the week. The second film we'll talk about is Ek Din, which I have to tell you was not as terrible as I thought it would be. I went in with zero, I think -0 expectations. It's a remake of a Thai film. You know, it has Junaid Khan, who I'm afraid I have not been a fan of in the 2 movies that he's done. But it has a wonderful Sai Pallavi. And if you haven't watched her movies, most of them in South Indian movies, she is just phenomenal. She lifts the film with her presence. She makes it come alive. She's so different from the usual gym-toned and Botoxed beauties of Bollywood. She looks totally different, totally natural, and is a joy to watch on screen. And there's a scene, of course, she's a fantastic dancer. There's a scene which exploits that fully. And for a change, Junaid Khan is actually cast well, because he's supposed to be awkward and that soft boy and, you know, the person who sort of feels invisible next to this firecracker of a woman. And I have to say that he fits the bill. So I don't know whether it's good casting or good acting, but the casting here is actually just perfect. And I suppose it's an antidote to all those bearded bicep people we've been watching on our screens, which I've been ranting about in the past few weeks. I think you must be quite familiar with that by now. So it's nice to see young men who are not so sure of themselves, who still think getting the girl of their dreams is the most desirable thing in life, and who will do anything short of violence. Thank God there's not a single violent scene in this movie, which is such a relief. And there's something to be said about setting the film in Japan, which I think if you've been following the reviews, we had a Marathi film recently called Tuti Ani Fuji, which was set in Japan again, a Marathi film about a couple that meets 7 years later in Japan, set in Hokkaido, and it gives us the sights and sounds of Hokkaido and a slice of Japanese culture. So there is something charming about it, but it's still not as exciting as it could be. I wonder what that is, but there's a spark that's missing in the film, and it has nothing to do with Sai Pallavi, who is really the standout in it. Maybe the screenplay sort of tends to not give us a very convincing finale, but it's, as I said, not as bad as I thought it would be. So, yay. So the 2 films this week, The Devil Wears Prada, which you have to watch because it's a cultural phenomenon and we all need to have a point of view on cultural phenomena, and Ek Din, which was surprisingly decent. Thank you so much. See you next week.